Hello, welcome to On the Mic with Mike. I am Mike Jarvis, and this time for this edition, we are talking Politicalypso, political calypsos. And if you've been across one of the, as far as I'm concerned, one of the major developments of this calypso season in Montserrat, and a work that is going to last a lifetime. That is the publication of the book Politicalypso, written by Francelise and White, along with Edwin L. Red Ride Martin. They're here with me, Edwin and Francelise. Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Okay, and I'm going to just do that again. So I just want you both to say from me again, hello to everyone. So starting with you, Francelise.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Okay, I can edit the afternoon. And Edwin, hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, guys, for being with me to discuss your book, Politicalypso. And the book says, Calypso has served as the soundtrack for Montserrat politics over 6 decades. First question to you collaborators on this very important work and project. Why this book and why now?
Okay. The book came off as I don't even know, it's just like an afterthought kind of, where I was listening to an interview that Red Ride did with Justin that was aired a few days after his passing. And I contacted Red Ride and I said, look, why not? I'm thinking about doing a book with the marriage. I think that's the word that I used at the time, the marriage with calypso and politics. And after pitching the idea, he said, oh, it's a great one. Let's delve into it. And we did so. So it wasn't like it was something that we sat down and discussed and then decided, okay, we're going to do a book. It was just like I went and pitched this to him and he decided, okay, it's a good idea and he's going to work along with me to bring the idea into reality.
So, Edwin Red Ride, when Francelise came to you with this idea, your background is in journalism. What was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was, man, why didn't I think of that? You know?
And you're also a Calypsonian.
Absolutely. And so when she mentioned it to me, I'm like, wow, that is an absolute wonderful idea. You know, sometimes somebody might come to you with a suggestion or whatever, and you have to mull it over and you have to think it over. From the minute she said it, I knew I wanted to do it because, and like I said, it was the perfect fit because she was working in the legislature and she had been working on a really comprehensive recap of Montserrat political history. And I, as a Calypsonian, Calypso historian, also as a journalist, it was just a perfect fit. So I decided to go for it.
And Francelise, I was just going to come back to you, but Edwin sort of preempted it. But your professional background, because yes, I mean, there's a love clearly of the art form, but your professional background, we know Edwin as a journalist, editor, and a Calypsonian, but yourself?
At the time of writing the book, I was in the Department of Legislature working as a commissions analyst, and I did quite a lot of research on the electoral and parliamentary history of Montserrat.
I'm a journalist. I'm tempted to ask you, just for those of us who might not know, who or what is a commissions analyst?
Okay, so I was working with there are 4 different commissions on Montserrat attached with the Constitution and Commission Secretariat: Complaints, Electoral, Integrity, and Mercy. And I was attached to the Complaints Commission as the secretary. So it meant that I would do secretarial duties in terms of writing minutes, doing research for information that they would need for doing reports, and disseminating information as it relates to the Complaints Commission and the Secretariat on a whole.
So how then do you make that transition at all, if it was that, or embrace the thought, the concept of writing a book about the political and social impact of what we call social commentary calypsos in Montserrat?
Okay, so it would have come from me, as Edwin would have said a short while ago, that I did some comprehensive research as it relates to the electoral and parliamentary history of Montserrat. And doing the research, I realized that a lot of the calypsonians at the end of year came out from, there was a spin-off from some sort of political drama, if I want to say, that happened during the year. And I was like, okay, some persons may not know the history.
Hello? Edwin?
I'm still here, Mike.
Put it out there.
Okay, have Francelise? Okay, you just dropped out. So just repeat what you were saying for me there.
I dropped out?
Yes, you
You
did.
hear me now?
I'm hearing you clearly
Okay,
now.
so you heard nothing that I said?
I just heard.
You didn't hear nothing I said before?
Just repeat that bit for me. Pick it up from, hello?
Search, as Edwin would have said before, on electoral and parliamentary history. And so I thought, well, persons may hear the songs at the end of each year, but they possibly may not have known the political drama, if you want to put it, that would have happened that created this song. And in doing the research, I realized there are a lot of songs that came out from political dramas. That's what I'm going to say, political dramas that happened during the year. And so I thought, why not mesh the two of them together? Because it's like a marriage. Without the political drama, then there would not be the calypso. So why not mesh the two of them together like a union, like a marriage union, and write about it? So that's my thinking, my general thinking on how the concept of the book.
Well, you've written about it and done so extremely well. I'm going to read the introduction to the book, and that has your name all over it. Obviously, the book is a collaboration between you two, and it reads, and there are some sections from this book that I'm going to return to from time to time in this conversation. So it goes. Calypso, created as a vessel for descent, has been dubbed the poor man's editorial. Like blues music is to African Americans, calypso was the Caribbean slaves' jargon as a clandestinely protested masses tyranny. However, following the abolition of slavery and indentured servitude, calypsonians validated the lifestyle of the same British colonialists who subjugated them. It goes on. It is the irony of the highest degree that calypso adopted a royal theme, almost seemingly paying homage to the oppressor. It is no coincidence that for more than a century, calypsonians have battled to be monarch and to win the crown, and the fact that many chose a nickname featuring Lord, the British title of nobility, is also not happenstance. Some even embrace the actual names of British luminaries such as Lord Kitchener and Lord Nelson. Well, in Montserrat terms, we haven't gone that far, but could I get you guys to elaborate on that opening paragraph which establishes the element, the essence of the book? Let me come back to you to begin with, Edwin.
Okay. So when we set out to format the book, after we decided to do the book, the next step was to decide how we were going to set everything up. I said, we need an introduction. I don't want to just dive into Montserrat politics. I want to give an overview of Calypso as it relates to the Caribbean and how far we've come. So as you notice, I mentioned about where Calypso originated in the slave fields. And the part about the royal theme is something I've been thinking about for many years, because it just dawned on me one day and said, you know what? The British were our sort of oppressors. They were slave masters and everything like that. And as soon as we get free and we start to sing Calypso, which Calypso actually was a protest against their tyranny. And now we're battling to be the king, to win the crown, to be the monarch. You have Lord Kitchener, Lord Nelson, all these people, just about every calypsonian in Trinidad at one point was called Lord Almighty this. And I just thought it was so ironic. Why not call yourself, you know, I don't know, an African name or something? Instead of having a crown, why not have some African symbol? Because that's where we actually came from, you know? And so I just thought it would be interesting to mention that in there. I don't know if some people might look at it and see that as sort of extra or whatever, but one of the things I've always been taught when you're writing is do not be afraid to digress. As long as it's interesting, I think it's nothing wrong with digression. So that's what it was. I just wanted to sort of set the table for what was to come later on in the book by giving an overview of just where Calypso was born and some of the ironies that have taken place along the way.
Spoken and outlined like the excellent journalist that you are. And it's not a question of digressing at all, because this is critical to what the book is all about. As a matter of fact, I mean, I share that thought. I mean, I've had to go at names like Lord Kitchener and the like, and even Black Stalin, but this is about you guys and this book. And I want to come back to you, Francelise. And again, I'm making another quote here, and this embodies also what the book is all about. Politicians, always full of promises. When put in power, they forget the public and study their own finances. They burn their manifesto, strut around with inflated ego. When reminded of their big commitment, they always have some appointment. That is actually not a calypso by Red Ride, and I'm sure he would have done something like this. But in the book, this is taken an extract from Arrow's Politician's Prayer. I think the album, that's from the 1976 album, Positively Jumpy was the name of the album. So Francelise, or Francelise, when you look at lyrics such as this, and considering that we've just come out of an election in Montserrat, how applicable would this theme be, or is this theme to what the book is all about?
I think that the theme is, well, because I look at politics and calypso as a marriage. So looking at the title, Politicalypso, is the merging of the two words. You get political, and then you go back and you get calypso. So it's a marriage, it's a tie, it's a unity. If you see what I'm trying to say, it's a marriage. You see it, Politicalypso. You see the words coming out. They're joined together. And did I answer the question?
Absolutely, you did. And yourself also being a researcher, given the amount of work that went into putting the material for this book together. The first question I should ask you right now, how long did it take you to do the research and put this book together?
So we started in February. I would say mid-February we started, and we gave ourselves a target deadline of November, and we were finished by mid-September.
Early October, yes.
Yeah.
And I notice, and I would really encourage every Montserratian and every lover of calypso, every calypso connoisseur throughout the Caribbean, throughout the world, do get your hand on this book. It is a fantastic body of work. In the Montserrat context, you've taken it in chapters that also pertain not just to the Calypsonians and particular calypsoes. I think Edwin said you selected 25. You've done it sort of decade by decade, starting with the decade of the 1970s. So let me stay with you a minute, Francelise. How have you seen from your research the political, social commentaries, calypsos evolving over the years? Have they been getting older or what?
They've been getting interested over the years. Some of them, I'm like, okay, wow. Yeah, it's been getting more interesting as the years go by. That's my take on that. I don't know what's Edwin's take, but as the decades or the years go by, I find that the politics get interested. There were times where they would really target a politician itself, and there were times that they targeted political groupings and times that they targeted the political issue at the time. But I would say overall, it got interesting over the years and the decades.
And Edwin Red Ride Martin, for someone who's been on the stage doing what Francelise is talking about here, how do you view calypsos in Montserrat over the past decades, from the 70s coming up?
Well, it's quite interesting because when I think about the evolution of calypso in Montserrat, I have to think about a chapter that we have in the book about what I call the big band theory, about songs that were banned.
Yep.
And we realize that nowadays, Mike, it's virtually impossible to ban a song.
And let me interject here, because I don't know if I should have had a disclaimer at the beginning of this thing, but so I am part of the book as someone who was interviewed for the book and someone who has had the I'm trying to find the right word to describe my situation, from an outsider, an insider who had to cope with certain decisions, to an insider in a senior position who had to make some of those decisions. Back to you, Edwin.
Right. Yes. Well, like I said, I think the first song that was banned was PDP, 1971. And I mentioned that we have a whole chapter on that one. And I think it's so interesting because, and this is one of the reasons why I really want to thank the Right Honorable Austin Bramble, because he provided such great context to that time. Talking about his father, talking about that contentious 1970 election, which is what birthed that PDP song by Arrow, which was, that song was really, really sort of like harsh on old Chief Bramble. And that's why, part of the reason why Radio Montserrat banned it. And so, yes, Mike, I really appreciate your input, speaking to you, speaking to Wilsey White, speaking to Herman Sargent, the current general manager at Radio Montserrat, just to get an insight into the difficult decisions that have to be made. 1 minute you're a journalist, and the next minute you have to be a censor. So these are some of the things that we tackle in the book that I think have divulged some really interesting facts about that. So when you talk about the evolution of calypso, I just think about the fact that back in the 70s and 80s, you had some calypsonians who put out some pretty harsh, well, I wouldn't say harsh, but critical songs, and they were banished from the airwaves, and nobody ever heard them again because there were no options. There was no YouTube. There was no Spotify. There was no internet. No alternative ways to play these songs. But nowadays, it's virtually impossible to ban a song. So I just think, when I think about the evolution of calypso in Montserrat, I think about the fact about how music and the power of media has changed. The landscape has changed over the years, where certain things like banning a song is pretty much impossible in this day and age.
And coming back to you, Francelise, in doing your research and putting the book together with Edwin, what would you say struck you the most as you started investigating, researching these songs, having to listen to them and cast your mind back to the period in which they came out and what was going on during that time? What impacted you the most?
The one that impacted me about the most is the Big Band Theory, which features the deportation of Father Alson Percival. That one, even before this idea came up to write a book, and I was doing the research for the other electoral political research, I always said that I would want to write, to put that story out there about the deportation of Alson Percival, because I'm appalled at the things that happened during that time, leading up to that time, that caused him eventually leaving Montserrat. So yeah, that was the one that was most interesting, most mind-boggling for me doing the research.
I won't tell you who was at the center of that situation as well, I think.
I do know who the person is, but I won't call names.
At that time, I think I was just straddling they like dancing on a pinhead between being a journalist, being an announcer, and just getting into management. And let me put it this way, politics in Montserrat around that time was hot. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just, as I said, this is a conversation, just to inject, there was a year the Calypsonian was Attacker from St. John's. And Attacker has a calypso called Tell Me. I'm not going to try to sing it, okay? But there's a line in Tell Me by Attacker that speaks of a radio announcer placed under heavy manners. Now, consider that song, okay? That you are the radio announcer in question being placed under heavy manners for certain your professional outlook. And it wasn't the following year, probably a few years after, you are now cast in the position as the person to be making those very same decisions. And somebody needs to write a calypso about that. Maybe I should do a bit of poetry around it. Getting back to the book, or sticking with the book has in the addendum, as it were, it reflects the degree and the detail of the research that went into pulling this material together. Francelise, I'm staying with you. Tell us about that experience and the amount of time and effort placed into getting the material that you needed to get.
Well, for most part of it, I already had the majority of information before this collaboration with Red Ride. But in terms of pulling other information, I wouldn't say it was difficult. It was just that I just needed to find the time. So it meant that afternoons after work, lunch hours, Saturdays, that I would go to the library to pull the information, or it meant that I would dedicate time to call persons, to interview them, to gather more information, to get numbers, stuff like that, to pass on to Edwin. So I wouldn't say that it was like difficult because I had already done the research as a part of what I was doing prior to the book. So yeah.
And was that done as a part of work, quote unquote, say 50% part of work and 50% just your fascination with calypso music, and particularly the marriage, as you called it, between politics and calypso? So
you mean the research for this book or the research that I was doing before?
The research for this book and your involvement, or how calypso appeals to you generally. Are you a calypso fan, basically?
Of course I am.
Well, maybe the question should have been, how big a calypso fan are you to have done something like this?
I am big enough. I tend not to go to the eliminations and semifinals, but it's a must that I go to the finals. I listen to calypsonians, to calypsos, because genre is about social commentary or something about politics. So I would say, yeah, I am a big enough calypso fan.
And being a big enough, quote unquote, calypso fan, and to analyze these calypsos the way that you've done, do you also write calypsos?
Oh no, no. I am more of the fashion one. I'm as a past queen, I'm more into the fashion than the calypso writing.
Well, Mr. Martin Red Ride not only writes calypsos, he sings them as well. And he's also featured in the book for a calypso that's one of my favorite, for the way it's penned, the way it's put together, what it's all about, Paging Dr. Sammy. Tell us about your involvement, or maybe I should get Francelise to comment on that, but I'll stick with you for the moment. Edwin, tell us about that, how it appears in the book.
Okay, about Paging Dr. Sammy?
Yeah.
Okay. Mike, I must tell you that when Francelise and I sat down and we decided the 25, and we decided to do Paging Dr. Sammy, at first I was a little skeptical because I said, man, I don't want to how does this look, me putting one of my own songs in here? It looks a little like nepotism, sort of, you know? But one of the criteria we used for picking songs is we wanted to not only pick songs that were impactful, groundbreaking, songs that were popular, songs that were hits, but we also wanted to pick songs that had a great backstory. And I just felt that paging Dr. Sammy, I know the backstory because I'm the one who wrote it. So I said to myself, I think it's an interesting backstory. You know, that chapter talks a little bit about my career. I didn't pick up a mic to sing calypso till I was 40 years old. You know, I talk about how the idea for paging Dr. Sammy came about, and you know, some of the behind the scenes things that happened when I contacted him and told him I was doing a song about him. I had never met him before. And so, like I said, yeah, we chose songs that had an interesting background, what we deemed to be an interesting background. So that one obviously was personal to me, but yeah, I was a little skeptical at first because I said, man, we're overlooking some other songs, because if you notice in the book, Mike, at the end, we have a section called Best of the Rest. So there were some songs that didn't make the cut to be the top 25 as far as the ones we're featuring. So I said, man, I don't want people to think this is nepotism, but looking back, I have no regrets. I think it's a very interesting story on paging Dr. Sammy.
And one of the chapters in the book that also appeals to me, that has a sort of a biblical reference or biblical connotation to it, is titled The Writings of Paul. Francelise, tell us about that one.
I think you're starting with the wrong person, but I'll have a go at it. The Writings of Paul is more, I'm not sure if persons know that when Mr. Lewis began, well, he began writing before he became a parliamentarian. But when he
interject here, the Mr. Lewis we are speaking about is Mr. Paul.
Is the Honorable Member Paul Lewis,
who is the current opposition
But then,
leader.
Yes, and then when he became a parliamentarian, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, that he became the first sitting parliamentarian to write calypso for a calypsonian. So he writes for Silk, who is the current monarch, and it's like, as the book says at some point in it, that he's like, Silk is his voice. Silk is carrying out the message for him. But I will let Edwin expound on it more, because yeah, he's the one who really delved into that story more than I did.
Back to you, Edwin.
Sure. Okay. So when we were thinking about the headline for that story, his name is Paul. So Mike, you know, Paul, that's low-hanging fruit as far as the headline, you know? And I said, Gospel of Paul, you know, I was just trying to think of something with Paul, you know? Paul was a big part of the Bible, you know? And the fact that Honorable Paul Lewis is a writer, I said, I'm going to go with the writings of Paul. I know it sounds a little biblical, but I think it's fine. And by the way, he was very gracious and told us his story. And, you know, he was very, very, very accommodating. And I really appreciate that. And I liked how honest he was. He said, look, when I'm writing for someone, I give them the first option as to what they want to sing about. And if they don't give me a topic to sing about, I'm going to write something that reflects my opinion. He said that. So I just thought that was very interesting. And the fact that he was once a performer, and then he migrated to being a politician, but kept on writing calypso. So you have a calypso writer and a politician. He's actually a sitting politician. You can't ask for better than that. That had to be featured in the book.
Well, folks, I must say that it's really necessary to get your hands on this book, and not only to have it as decoration, but also to read it. As a matter of fact, this should also be in the schools as well. And think of all of the big hit, topical, controversial political calypsos down through the years in Montserrat, from the time Calypsonians started getting political. I did an interview with the mighty warrior, Mr. Alfred Christopher. And he was telling me when they started Calypso, they weren't really getting into the political material as much as started happening in the 1970s and down through the years, right up to this year, as I said, an election year. So from what we haven't heard already, we've heard a few. There are a few more that will be performed before the festival / carnival, I should say, Calypso season is over. It is a fantastic bit of work. I commend both of you for the research, the effort that you put into this, the love that you put into it, and the end product. It is a fascinating book. So congratulations. Any final word beginning with you, Francelise?
Yes, other than encouraging persons to purchase a copy of the book, it can be purchased on Amazon, Amazon.com and Amazon.ca or even Amazon UK. And I have a few copies left that you can also purchase from me. Yes, it's a good read. It's a must read. I have not had any negative reviews. I'm getting persons are telling me how good the book is and how they don't want to put it down and commending myself and Red Ryan on doing such a piece. So I will just encourage Montserratians and persons afar, even not Montserratians, to get a copy of this book. It would be worth it.
Edwin?
Yes. Well, first of all, final words, I just want to thank Francelise for collaborating with me on this. It was hard work. It was about 8 months of continuous research, writing, rewriting, editing, rewriting again. So it was an arduous process at times, but I mean, I am really happy with the final product. And like she said, I really want the public to know that this is not bragging, but I think this is a wonderful read. You know, some people would say to me when they hear I have a book, they would say to me, "Oh, me don't really read, you know, but me I go support you." I said, "Listen, no, I want you to read it. I don't want you to just get it and put it on your coffee table and leave it there. I want you to read it. We worked hard on this book, and I want you to read it." So I, you know, like how sometimes people might have a product and they said, you know, money back guarantee or whatever. I'm not going to go that far, but what I would say is that I'm pretty sure anybody, if you're interested in Montserrat history, if you love Calypso, if you love politics, like I said, Montserrat history in general, this book has all of that. And so I just think that it's a labor of love. It's a wonderful collaboration, and I just think that it's I'm very, very proud of it. Very proud of it. This is my 5th book, and I'm very, very proud of it.
Well, I endorse that 100%. I endorse the book 100%. But I have one further question.
Yes.
You guys ready? Francelise, you ready?
Yeah.
When are we going to get volume 2?
Oh.
Thank you very much. We await volume 2. Thanks, guys. That was really good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.